give a big hand for Jessica.
It's really flowing in here. I had to bring up my church fan. Woo! You guys are so beautiful. I still love coming here. Let's get that out of the way. I love this time of year. This time when New Year's happens. We set all our intentions, and before we've made our goals, you know. It's a great time. It's kind of like it's so full of expectancy. But many people, apparently, they get stressed out. They get stressed out because are they not going to get their goal? You know, as a matter of fact, Ileana Monson has written a book called In the Meantime that describes the stress between when we set our goals and we make our goals, when we're on our journey between relationships, between events, between jobs. Eckhart Tolle says that the stress is caused by being here but wanting to be there, not being happy in our present moment. But today is a perfect day when we can relax in the face of change from one goal to the next, because we know how it works. So the title of my talk comes from the second section of the introduction of the Science of Mind textbook. And if you were ever to be on a desert island and you could only have a couple of pages to read, I invite you to just take those couple of pages from the introduction of that big, thick book, and you'll have everything you need. The way it works, the thing itself, what it does. It's the Science of Mind teaching, putting structure around consciousness that always is. That is. And that can transform your life. So here's what we know. We know that God is. That God is everything. From the little bits that the scientists are breaking down the atoms to out beyond those galaxies that we know about. Matter of fact, scientists have been proving that God exists. But that's like Newton proving that there was gravity. Gravity exists. It's not, scientists aren't making God come into form. It exists. God is. And you know, in the Science of Mind book, there are a lot of names to reference God. Universal life, energy, universal mind, truth, spirit, origin of everything, first cause. And then when we expand that list to include all the different paths that we honor in Centers for Spiritual Living, we got Allah, Buddha mind, Buddha nature, Great Spirit, Goddess, Christ consciousness, Atman, divine love, the infinite, abundant consciousness, beauty, love, grace, joy, elegance. This is all God. And up here in the desert, in particular, we can feel God at night when we're looking up in that clear sky. Those stars are just drilling down. And we look and we see nothing but this bottomless infinity overhead. We can feel God. But God being indescribable, unlimited by the labels of any of these words, is pure awareness, isness. And we're swimming in it. We're in it. The Spirit of God is undivided, an indivisible wholeness. It fills all time with its presence and all space with the activity of its thought. I don't know about you, but I really feel that spaciousness of God up here in the desert. We just are so close to that expression of God. So some feel that it's difficult for the human mind to understand this all-encompassing presence. And there's books and books and books and all sorts of things trying to describe God. So I think that our difficulty is that we try and make it too abstract. So we already know that we live. We already know that our lives are filled with events. Persons are coming and going, happenings are taking place in our everyday experience. thoughts are in our mind, the activities of our affairs, circulation of blood in our body. So we already understand that the presence of life, that life is, God is. That makes it easy, yeah? So our understanding is not so much about where is God, as it is about practicing the presence. And to understand that this presence is always with us, in us, expressing as us. Nothing can be nearer to us. And that what is the essence of our being? God. God. So our outward search for God ends in the greatest of all possible revelations, when we know that God is at the center of our own being. Not God, me here, you up there. God. Right? Life, just God, flows up from within us. We are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. And we're surrounded by, immersed in, and having it flow through us, this creative something. And you can call it whatever you want. God, energy, universal mind, love. But that's the truth. So here, science of mind, we know that God is, I am. That God works for us by working through us and is us always. God cannot work for us in any other way. God doesn't work for me through somebody in Washington. God doesn't work for me through anything outside of myself. God works through me, works through us. God's everywhere, showing itself from every single angle. Yes, brushing your teeth, driving here. God doesn't just exist just sitting here in the pews. So oneness. Oneness is that original relationship between man and God. Oneness. We are one. And it doesn't make any difference how many possessions we have or how much we make. We must know that our basic relationship with God is oneness. 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 But we can only see God in our lives when we recognize that God is our life. How much can we believe? As much as we can believe. We're only limited by our own beliefs. See, it's a spiritual principle that nothing exists outside of our consciousness. Consciousness creates thought. My thoughts manifest into form. And we are what we believe. And we're using this power of life at all times, whether or not we're aware of this fact. God is, whether or not we acknowledge it, we're aware of it, God is. No matter what it is that we desire, nothing is impossible. What's now a fact was something that could only have been imagined. So let's begin by imagining a life structure that we want to experience, and we persuade ourselves that we are in it. You know, think about electricity and the ancient Egyptians, okay? So electricity existed in an ancient Egyptian time. They just weren't aware of it, so they couldn't use it. That doesn't mean that electricity didn't exist. God is, I am. If we're aware of that possibility that nothing is impossible, then we can have electricity. We can have space travel. We can have cures for disease. And when we awaken to our own spiritual magnificence, we can see our life unfolding as God's life. We can't quit grasping at it, and we just allow what we want to experience to happen. Instead of focusing on get, we let. As Ernest Holmes says, it's entirely a question of receptivity. Now, Michael Beckwith talks about drinking being receptivity, drinking that tea that's receptive. So let's remove the seemingly impenetrable obstacles which confront us, by simply not focusing on them. Knowing that they're going to be taken care of as we focus on what we want to experience. If you have to go over a mountain to reach your goal, then you're either going to go over the mountain or the mountain's going to be laid flat. But you're going to reach your goal if you focus on your goal. So Emma Curtis Hopkins, in her book, The Spiritual Law in the Natural World, talks about releasing old beliefs that limit us. You know, when I set my New Year's intentions, it's my old beliefs that stop me from getting to them. And she talks about releasing old beliefs, and then another one pops up. She talks about them, about knocking down pins, but I have an updated version. Let's see if you like it. It's kind of like that arcade game, Whack-A-Mole. You know that game? So my beliefs are set up in my subconscious like those moles that are stuck underground. And I start banging my mallet of intentions on my old beliefs, sometimes hitting the target, sometimes hitting other ones. I knock down all of them that I think of, but then, hey, those moles, they keep popping up, and I keep having to knock them down, all right? So just know that that's part of the journey, that these obstacles that I have set up in my own belief, I have to release them, so they got to come up to be released. Neville Goddard, a New Thought minister, teacher who died in 1972, he reminds us, whatever is necessary to be removed for us to fulfill what we assume will be done for us as long as we remain faithful to ourselves, the source of all life. As long as we stay focused on God living its life through us, we get what we need. We get it to share and spare. So sometimes letting or allowing God doesn't seem easy because I resist. I like holding on to my own beliefs sometimes. But my spiritual practice of staying present in the moment, receptive to all that is God in my life, without judgment, that takes effort. The without judgment part is what I'm working on this year. But I know that my persistent effort will produce results. Being without judgment. The results are great. Because God flowing through me, as me, expressing as me, feels so good. And all that's required is to stay in the present moment and observe without judgment. To just be mindful. Just recognize that God is, I am. There's no mental coercion. We're not talking about making the mind do something. As a matter of fact, Ernest Holmes has that great quote about what strong will is. Strong will is so beneficial because it keeps the mind poised while God takes care of everything. That's always helped me because I've always been really strong-willed when things weren't going my way. So we don't will things to be done. Things are brought into being by the power of the self-assertive truth. We are as we believe. And we can believe everything. There is no limit to what we can believe. Infinite possibilities are possible in God. Now, what I believe is that our highest good is limitless. Our highest good is as infinite as God is. I love the 23rd Psalm. Only goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life. Yeah, that's what we want, right? I want to feel good. But receptivity is the key. It's the key. Being willing to be open to see our highest good unfolding. So this New Year's, I set an intention to release resistance and judgment and to embrace openness while staying in the present moment. So that was 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So of course, lots of opportunities to resist and then showing up. Okay? All right. So it was fascinating the way this goes. About a week and a half ago, Southern California Edison had a planned power outage on our street. It's just on our street. They had to repair their equipment. And it was scheduled from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it wasn't an issue for me because I knew I was going to work. My daughter was at home. And so she prepared. Instead of complaining about it, she was receptive to what the good was in it. She was all set not to open the freezer. She knew how to open up the electric garage door. She was ready. Except in the morning when she wanted her cup of coffee and the electric grinder wasn't working, right? To grind her little coffee beans. So she texts me that she's going to take a walk with the dogs down to the coffee shop, which is a great thing. She could complain about it. She gets to exercise the dogs, she gets to go down and walk down. Now in Acton, we're so rural, we don't have those fancy Starbucks like you guys do up here. We have this little place called Perkin' Up, right? It's about a half mile from our house. So she gets there, and the outside tables at Perkin' Up weren't out. So she could have complained, but instead what she does is she goes to try and find a railing that you can tie the dogs down to. And apparently this railing is in front of a gym that we didn't even know existed. All right? The gym owner comes out with some cables to help tie down the dogs. Okay? And she goes and gets her coffee. Meanwhile, we could be complaints, she could have been complaining about all of this, but she was willing to see God in action in this whole thing. So the next thing I know, she's texting me about all the ways that this gym is going to work for us, And so I signed us up for the gym. Now, talk about me. I've been wanting to get into shape, but I've been resisting it. And I thank Southern California Edison for that power outage. I led my daughter to get the cup of coffee to lead her to find the gym, okay? But there's more. See how that works, that receptivity being open? So I had my first workout 2 Saturdays ago. Talk about resistance, okay? And I started living in the past, very critical of myself. Because back in the day, a millennium ago, I used to run 2 miles in 14 minutes. I used to run a 7-minute mile. And now I can barely stay on the elliptical for 3 minutes. It was like, so I had to work through my resistance, letting go, not having any judgment. And on top of that, the gentleman who owns the gym, he loves to question and explore spiritual issues. I know, so here I am, right, a minister, feeling this resistance working out anyway, and now I feel like I have to defend my spiritual path. All right? And all I wanted to do was work out, and here I was having to define God, what is enlightenment, spiritual path versus a goal within the details of semantics. It was like describing the difference between true north and magnetic north. I felt like I had a sparring rabbi, discussion going on there. What? I know, right? What a gift this guy had. And I told him I was going to talk about him today, so it was good. So I chose in that moment of working out and then having to talk about my core beliefs, my spiritual beliefs. I chose to be receptive in that present moment of God expressing and recognize that this gentleman was just asking questions. He wasn't trying to change me. He wasn't asking me to change him. We had a pretty lively discussion. It was great. Nobody felt like something was right or wrong. We were just having a discussion. So I made it to the gym every day last week. And keep in mind, I'm releasing resistance and embracing openness. Every morning when that alarm goes off, there's a litany of reasons why I shouldn't go exercise. That goes off in my head. Every day, everybody's been so proud of me going up on, you know what? I'm embarrassed to say I've had all these reasons why I shouldn't go. I exercise 3 days in a row, 3 days in a row, that's enough. My muscles are too sore, it's too dark. Maybe I'm rushed into this, blah, 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 blah. But I only have to remind myself that everything is possible in the mind of God. And that gets my feet on the floor and my body follows. The way it works is as I believe. Nothing that is possible in spirit is impossible in flesh and blood. Nothing that we think is impossible. Nothing that we imagine is impossible to manifest into physical form. Knowing that infinite possibilities are available to us, we can allow ourselves to grow into those possibilities that we want to experience. That's how it works. We know God is, we know I am one with God. We're receptive, and we allow God to flow through us, as us. We know that our search is open. We know the way it works. We're consciously aware of that presence of spirit in us. We've discovered the great, big R reality. We're awake to that realization, its presence. There is but one life. Yes, yes, yeah. So today we see it reflected in every form. We hear it reflected in the music. We see it in the faces of everyone here in the congregation and everyone that we see at Rouse. Knowing that the divine presence is in everyone that we meet, that the Spirit is in all people, we applaud the good in everything. We start seeing good. And all of that other stuff that's going on just kind of falls away. It's not that we're denying it, we're just letting it take care of itself. We recognize that the life that we live as God is responding to us from every person we meet, in every event that transpires, in every circumstance in our experience. In every circumstance in our experience. The power outage, not being able to tie up the dog. In every experience, we feel the warmth and the color of this divine presence, the infiniteness of the sky, forever welling up from within us, not outside of us. That wellspring of eternal being that is yesterday, today, tomorrow, and always. We know this. We know this. So Fenwick Holmes, Ernest Holmes' brother, who's a mystic in his own right, he goes further when he says, claim happiness out of the universal. It's there in abundance, but you must draw on it. The Spirit is ready to give, but we must take. Wait. More than that, we must boldly demand. So we put our demands into God, and God delivers. Because we're one with God, and nothing is impossible with God. So as we know that God works for us only through us, we begin to accept more good today than we experienced yesterday. Can you imagine that? Experiencing more good. Today is going to be better than yesterday. My yesterday was pretty good, and today is like, man, this is credit. And we can harvest our intentions. We manifest our intentions. We manifest our goals. It's the journey of getting there. Not just the goal, but just knowing and staying in that present moment. We realize the work with work. That this is the way that it works. With this proven knowledge and perfect faith. So, I'm going to leave you with these wise words from RevJFish. Okay, I'm telling you, God's everywhere. I, not events, have the power to make me happy or unhappy. I can choose which it shall be. Yesterday's dead, tomorrow hasn't arrived. I have just one day, today, and I am going to be happy in it. Yes. So join me in consciousness, please. I can invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. So, we acknowledge that we are in community, that we are in spiritual community, that we are united in this congregation right now, in agreement. And what do we agree on? We agree that God is. We agree that God is the center and the circumference, that God is infinite, and that God works through us. God is, I am. We agree that we are one with God. We allow that to just flow through us easily, without struggle. We just release all that is not what we perceive to be our highest good. We just let it go. And we see that we are one with God. Not out there, inside. And so in this agreement, we join in this healing prayer. We know that everything is working in divine right order for us. We demand it. We demand everything. Perfect health, now. We demand flowing, beautiful creativity, whether it comes to us in our job or career, or it comes through us through some other fashion. We get it now. We are prosperous. We see the infinite nature of God and we accept it as our own. So we have everything to share and spare now. And our relationships unfold with the beauty that is God. Because there is only one relationship, and that is the relationship with the beloved God. So we see God in everyone that we meet, and the relationship unfolds in that way. We are receptive. We are allowing this to flow through our lives. We allow ourselves to be healed now. Everything's in the mind right now. The spiritual community has everything that it needs right here, right now. And how beautiful it is. I am so very grateful to be in this community, to be in the presence of these spiritual giants who know that God is, I am. So, I release my word, this healing word, into this emergent field of love, knowing that we're marinating in it, we're immersed in it. And we can affirm this by saying, and so it is. Amen.